That's fine.
So the first question is, what has been the most challenging aspect of your career path?
So are we talking about teaching or we're talking about design now?
Design.
Okay. Design aspect, I would say the most difficult aspect initially was learning the business end of it, and dealing with clients and how to approach clients
Okay, so
and
I'm sorry.
setting like parameters, right? Like, so just saying you only get three versions of this
Yeah.
and then you pay extra, like saying no to clients.
Yeah. So saying no to people has definitely been a huge struggle of mine, especially in working. I don't like to say no. I try to always try to say yes. But if you had to approach maybe saying no to something, how do you go about it? How do you go about like letting the clients know like, hey, I can't do this or else you have to pay extra or something on that end?
So you have to do that on the front end, right? Like, so you have to have a contract. You have to say, this is what you get. This is, you get three versions initially. You get 2 rounds of revisions. Beyond that, you pay X amount of money for said revisions or whatever it is. So you have to be strong on the front end. Look, it's harder to go back and like be like, well, okay, you can't have this, and then they're gonna fight you on it. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're very clear on that front end, and you have an actual contract, is what I found. Like, you can be like, nope, this is what you agreed to, this is what you signed. I said this is what I'm gonna do, X, Y, and Z. Right? That way, it protects you. It also allows them to understand that no, that's exactly what they agreed to.
Yep.
And if not, they're going to pay more.
All right. So have a contract, I guess, in the beginning that you send first out.
Yeah, and an agreement. And I always take up. So one of the things I also learned initially was that you have to get like some sort of deposit. So you take half or a third at least of whatever that overall contract. So if it's like $5,000, you take $2,500 or a third of that initially.
All right. So my next question is, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your career in graphic design?
I'm just working on really cool projects for a lot of large clients and like just a variety of different clients. And like a lot of it is like, well, I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of learning in a weird way. So I think the rewarding aspect is just getting to work on a lot of uh, different types of projects, because I've done so many different types of work, like animation and web design and commercials and video stuff and just corporate branding, whatever it is. It's like a whole new like situation every time,
So this
and a
next,
lot of it is learning.
yeah. So this next question I couldn't really write out well, but I'm going to try to say it well. So have you ever
Okay.
felt like in your career you maybe failed at something? And if you have, if you are comfortable sharing the situation, how did you overcome the situation and learn from it to grow better in your career?
Yeah, I mean, failed at a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was business based. Like, because I didn't have a business background, I wasn't taught that. Um, I was an artist, and then I was a digital artist, and like whatever. Like, so I never took like business based courses, which I think is really important. Um, so my failures in terms of when I first started out was business based. So it would be like, so I did this project for, so she was one of the housewives of Atlanta. I don't know if you ever watched those shows.
No.
It was, I don't remember what it was on. It was like, I don't know, some TV show. Like, so they had like the Housewives of New York and Housewives of Jersey and Housewives of Atlanta. So one of the Housewives of Atlanta was one of my clients when I lived there. And her husband was like a football player for the Atlanta Falcons and New York Giants, etc. And so he gave her like $400,000 to like start her own boutique.
Yeah.
I was one of like 13 contractors that were working on the project. I did all the branding and design and all that kind of stuff. And she was the worst client in the entire world. Like, horrible. But I was starting out, like, I had a contract, I had a base contract, but then, like, I would do all these things for her, and like, she would go and ask her mom what she thought, like, ask her daughter what she thought, like, everyone she could find, she would ask, which is stupid,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I would make all these revisions, and I didn't specify how many revisions she could get, etc. So I was brought on by this other client that I had that was an artist that was like the creative director. He shouldn't have been a creative director. Uh, and so I ended up like, so this was like a 2 year process. And out of the 13 people that was initially on the project, I was the only one left after the 2 years.
Wow.
Even the guy that brought me on like left the project because she was such a pain in the ass.
Wow.
She was awful. She was absolutely awful. Um, but yeah, I was so determined to finish the project and to have that as part of my portfolio piece because it was a complete like corporate branding design. So it was like, like the logo and business cards, letterhead, everything. Like I did like the signage for the actual shop, and like there was so much stuff that I had to deal with that I shouldn't have had to deal with, because I should have gotten paid a whole lot more.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, I was brand new, and so I just kind of took it on because I wanted to. It just seemed like a cool project. Um, but yeah, like I even left Atlanta and moved back to Miami, and I was still finishing projects, part of that project, and partly like I could have just left,
Yeah.
and but I was determined to finish it. So yeah, that was probably the worst thing on earth.
So, what skills would you say are the most important for this career?
I think being very versatile, like you have to not just be good at like one thing, you have to be good at a lot of different things, or at least understand a lot of different things, um, but be good at certain things, if that makes sense. And part of it also, like, is that business end of things. Like when I ran my design studio, and I mean I still have it, but when I ran it when I was in Miami, like, I mean, I was managing like 4 or 5 clients. Like I was doing stuff for Lockheed Martin and like Heineken and AT&T, and but it was a lot of management type of stuff. Like so, I would have like we did these commercials. I've never done commercials before, but I was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But I was literally managing like 35, 40 people on a day, on a commercial shoot. So there was just like production people, and luckily my friend was like he was a director for music videos and stuff. So I hired him. So he kind of gathered a lot of the people, but then I had to manage budget and I had to manage feeding people. Like I didn't really think I had to feed people, but they're union based, so you have to feed them.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't think about. But yeah, like I had probably like 40 people on a shoot in a day, including actors and people that were working and whoever, and that was just a little nuts. So you have to be very versatile. You have to be really smart in terms of how to deal with people. And that doesn't seem like a a skill that is important, but it's really important because you're dealing with a lot of people. Not, and even if you're just doing design work, you're still dealing with art directors. You're dealing with a client. You're dealing with whoever, and you have to know how to talk to them. You have to know how to get what you need from them, if that makes sense, and tell them what to do
Yeah. So you
in
kind
a
of
weird way.
already answered this question in that. So I'm just going to delete this real quick. Um, if that's all right. I mean,
Yeah, it's fine.
so working with people is one of the most important skills for this career, is what you have sort of told me, is being able to be personable. So I guess another question I have is, how in high school and college did these experiences prepare you for your career? What are some things that maybe high school and college did not prepare you for that you had to work out and prepare for yourself once you had graduated?
So in terms of high school and college, just being able to be around a variety of different people. Like, so I grew up in Miami. I grew up in like my high school was an arts high school. So there was like, you had to pretty much audition to get into the high school. There's only so many spaces. So we only had like 120 people in our graduating class. So there was only a certain amount of people that could be in the art section, a certain amount of people in the theater section, dance, etc. So just dealing with that sort of really exposed me to quite a lot in terms of appreciating a variety of different things in life in general.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, like my friends were a couple of friends were like opera singers, and like going to their performances, and friends were dancers and their performances and theater and all that kind of stuff. Like, so it just really opened me up to really appreciating quite a variety of things and being open to quite a variety of things. And so, like, in terms of that personable aspect, I think that was really important. Same thing with college. Like, I went to an arts college, and it was amazing. Like, it was just like all these open-minded people that, like, it was crazy and beautiful at the same time. And but my background, my bachelor's degree is in fine arts. So I was like a painter, an artist, and then I had to figure out how I was going to eat. So that was something that I had to figure out. So I like my first master's was in art education. Like, that was something I really thought about. Like, okay, well, at some point, like, I have to make a career out of something.
Yeah.
Just if I'm not successful in terms of art or whatever. Um, but that business end of things was really something that I did not get, and I wish I would have gotten. And just being smart in terms of that end of things.
Yeah. So the next question is, I am self-taught in art. I learned, not necessarily learned, but I started drawing when I was about 7. I saw my cousin drawing and instantly took an interest to it, but I didn't really have any proper art training. I took like 2 art courses in high school that I never got to finish because of the COVID pandemic. So I'm really kind of confined in my skill set in art. I can really only draw like anatomically correct human figures. I can't draw like really anything else. So how would you give someone like me advice in regards to how to broaden the skill set in my art, improve artistic styles, and how to push myself out of my comfort zone, so that I can prepare myself for a career in graphic design?
So in terms of art, I would just say, like, work with materials that you're uncomfortable with. Try and experiment with a bunch of stuff that you're uncomfortable with. Force yourself to be uncomfortable in a weird way.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Like, some, a lot of stuff that, and even now, like at this age, like, I still try stuff that I don't understand, that I don't use, that is not my typical. I know what works. You know what I mean? Like over the years, I figured out what works. I figured out like what I can do to put together a piece. But a lot of it is like just pushing boundaries and like really exploring things that you're uncomfortable with. I think in terms of that art piece, and that goes the same with design. Like that should translate also to design. Like do things that aren't like the standard. That's not like what's expected in a weird way.
So the principles that you teach in your class, I'm assuming you did use them in your previous career as graphic design. Which principle do you think you held most to and is the most important that I should take out of your class into pursuing my career?
Keep it simple. That's it. Like don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. Like you, if there's a problem that you're trying to solve, like keep it as simple as possible. Like figure out like what's expected, what's needed, and how you get to that end point in the least amount of steps possible. That KISS theory is amazing. And that's probably something that I learned over the years. And you take a look at, what you have to think about the client, the end user, if it's in terms of design. In terms of art, that's you, right? But in terms of design, you're doing it for a reason. So you think about that end goal and figure out how you get there in the least amount of steps possible and in the smartest way possible.
So kind of like that concept of work smarter, not harder.
Correct. Yeah, I used to do stuff that I would just do because I really liked how it looked. It made no sense for the client.
Yeah.
And I would just have to do revisions upon revisions upon revisions. And it's just stupid. That's just stupid. Right. So if you really think about like what the end goal is and who it's for and what it's for and why, then you'll have a smarter approach to it.
So sometimes not everything I like isn't everything that the client likes, and what the client likes
Absolutely.
comes first, even if it's not something that
Not
I
even
find.
client. It's not about the client. It's their end user, right? Who are they trying to reach? That's what you need to think about. Who cares about the client?
Yeah.
They're going to have their opinions on it, but you have to convince them, okay, well, this is your audience. This is what demographically they like, or this is psychographically like this is what touches them and makes sense for them. And this is why this looks the way it does. And this is why this font works for them, etc. Or graphically it works for them, or color wise it works for them.
Gotcha. So, in your opinion, I'm also kind of antisocial. I don't really like interacting face to face with people. Is graphic design a career in which you can, I mean, you have shown that you can start your own business, but are you able to work from home instead of perhaps in an office setting or for one specific clientele your whole life and instead sort of take on jobs from other places?
I mean, you can if you have a great client that's going to feed you forever. Yeah, no, I've had friends that have literally worked for a large client and like that's their client. My friend works for Lockheed Martin and she's literally worked there for the last 20 years or 15 years or something like that. And that's what she does. She does go in at this point. I think she's working from home, but at some point you will have to deal with someone,
Yeah.
and it might be your art director. It may not be the client, which is great. If you work with someone that is your in between, that'll work out really well, especially if you are not comfortable dealing with people.
Yeah. So,
But one of the skill sets that you do have to develop is just working with people and talking to people and how to um, just kind of connect with people and get what you need from people.
yeah.
And some of it's just simple verbal situations. Like, how do you ask the right questions in terms of getting the information that you need?
So the final question is if you have any additional things you feel I should know about going into graphic design, perhaps how to start a business and how to get and communicate with the right people.
You have to network. Like, as much as you don't like talking to people, you have to network and you have to be personable. Unfortunately, like, that is not an option.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients are from, like, either through just knowing people and like connecting, going to places where I know that I'm going to get clients, or meetings or any of that kind of stuff, connecting on a social sort of situation in some manner. A lot of people trust and want to work with someone that they enjoy talking to. Like a lot of it is that. So, yeah. So it is really important that you figure out at least how to network. It can be like just through LinkedIn or, any of that kind of stuff or social media, but you have to have some social skills in terms of connecting, and people want to work with others that they enjoy being around. And a lot of it is because it is a lot of just interaction in a way. So it is important, like in terms of going into a field like this, like you do, like unless you're just going to be a production person that just does like, like just what needs to get done, which, that's not a lot of fun. Like, so if you're just executing X, Y, and Z, but not really having a whole lot of creative input into it, like, and you're just doing it to get it done, then it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to go in and have a lot of creative input and all that stuff, it is important to have social skills. So that's what I would say. Like, figure out how to do that.
All right.
It doesn't have to be dramatic, but you have to be able to interact with others.
So that was the last question. Thank you so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.